Okay, let's talk about every single Metroid opening ever, from 1986 to 2020. Starting with the progenitor, Metroid. TM. Wait, what was the password again? Oh yeah, it went something like D D D D D D D D D D D D D D D. Now, I've heard people say the original Metroid is creepy, and I get where they're coming from. Because if I was a 5-year-old, I know I'd be afraid of this game. And that would mostly be thanks to these spooky faces. But I'm not 5, so I know these faces aren't actually scary. Sure, they show their teeth, which is normally a sign of aggression. But you gotta remember, Metroid was made by humans, and humans show their teeth when they're happy. So if you think about it, it's pretty obvious that these statues are cute, smiley faces. But you want to know what's actually scary about Metroid? Well, it's not the music, I can tell you that. If anything, this music is the opposite of scary. It's super groovy. Okay, but you want to know what's genuinely scary about Metroid? TM? It's the difficulty. Now that's something to be afraid of. Think of it like this. You're just minding your own business, climbing up a precarious vertical shaft that threatens to knock you off the edge every few seconds. But it's going okay. Everything is fine. Maybe Samus doesn't get mauled by a trans-dimensional flying train, but it sure feels like it. Especially if this is the first time you're playing. Hardly 3 minutes go by and you're suddenly expected to be a button-pushing master. Not only do you need to run left or right to have the correct momentum to jump on these platforms, you also need to avoid enemies that crawl on the platforms, and watch out for flying turtles too. And if you happen to mistime a jump or touch an enemy, Samus gets whacked in a random direction and starts falling to the ground. While she's at it, there's a good chance the enemy will get a combo. In my opinion, climbing up these shafts this early in the game is a bit much. I mean, it's doable, but it's so painful when you mess up. Like colliding with a train at high velocity. Ouch. And even if you survive the climb and make it to a new room, chances are it's a dead end. That's how Metroid 1's opening works. You can explore in just about any direction you want, except until you find the missiles, most of those directions are dead ends. You can wander all over the place, only to find a door that won't open. And there's another one. And another one. And, ooh, energy tank. And another one. It's pretty frustrating. Although I wouldn't mind as much if I knew where I was going, because, and maybe you haven't noticed this, everything looks the same. See this room? Well, here's another one, but it's actually different. Or these tunnels. They're basically all identical, except for a few different enemies. Or how about my friend, the vertical shaft? Guess what? There's 2 of them. Except this one's yellow, so technically that makes it different. But trust me, it doesn't feel different. It just feels confusing. Wandering around not even sure whether I've been here before. Then I usually get attacked and die. Which brings us to the worst, most evilest part of Metroid. The amount of health you start with is only 30. 30 out of 99. And if you have an extra health upgrade which gives you 99 more HP, you'll still only start with 30. And it gets worse. The most you can heal at once is 5 HP, and you'll have hundreds of HP to heal. Hope you like grinding these flying bugs into dust and don't like having fun. And yeah, I went through all of this just in the opening. Didn't even leave the first area. Honestly, Metroid is just a really harsh and unforgiving game. When it released outside of Japan, it even went out of its way to include password saves. The bane of man. Seriously, why did they do this? Did they cheap out and not want to include a battery in the cartridge? Did they want children to be scared of weird symbols and numbers? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that the Metroid series never suffered another password save once Metroid 2 graced the Earth. Or, I mean, Metroid 2 didn't really have a big impact on anything, not even the rest of the series. So, once Metroid 2 popped onto the Earth and faded into total obscurity, that's when password saves died. Asterisk in Metroid. Asterisk TM. Good riddance. We won't miss you, because save files are the way of the future. Just select your file and bam, we're ready for the return of Samus. And the return of cheery music. Yeah, just like Metroid 1, Metroid Roman numeral DOS starts with music that sounds a little bit more cheerful than I think it should. I do like how it sounds, but I swear, Nintendo must have mandated that all their music back then needed to sound happy. Doesn't matter what the game was about. A plumber eating mushrooms. A Christian elf. A robot whose job is to exterminate an entire species. It doesn't matter. It all needs happy music. And I really think happy music is inappropriate for Metroid 2. Samus isn't here to feed the animals and tell them how nice and cute and cuddly they are. She's here to kill them. According to the manual, they, the Galactic Federation, came to one conclusion, which was unanimous and simple. ... Give Samus Aran the order to exterminate the Metroids. Samus is like, I'm on it. And then the music is like... And for most of the opening, it seems like it'll stay this way. But just before we make it to the next area, the music suddenly stops. And all that's left are occasional sporadic bleeps and bloops. Now this is more like it. The music shouldn't make Extinction seem cool. No, it should do whatever this is doing instead. This reminds me of an interview where Metroid TM's composer said that he wanted the music of Metroid TM to sound like a living, breathing organism. He didn't want it to have catchy pop tunes like in Mario or Zelda. He wanted it to sound like the music could be coming from an animal inside of the game. So I guess you could imagine it sounding like birds in a meadow with a gentle breeze. Except the meadow is a cave, there is no breeze, and the birds are actually aliens. So he wanted this to be the soundtrack for that. If that's a true story, then he did a lousy job, because Metroid TM's music is totally groovy. Come on, the Brinstar song is at least as catchy as the Mario theme song, and Zelda. Zelda 1 only has one good song. Metroid TM's whole soundtrack is good. And also, to be fair, he did make 2 tracks that sound exactly like what he was talking about in that interview. I only wish there were more of them. And then we've got Metroid 2, which was composed by somebody else, and it has 2 good songs. I don't even think the rest of the soundtrack is music. I sure don't want to listen to it. The few times I did, it gave me a headache. But still, these weird, sort of unpleasant sounds are way better fit for Metroid 2 than some upbeat music that makes you want to dance. Because, come on, we don't dance when there's exterminating to be done. We save that for after we kill a Metroid. Oh, that sound. That sound always scared the hell out of me. Just thinking about it gives me a mini heart attack. I don't know if it's supposed to be a jump scare, but I jumped. I jumped almost every time I heard it. It was annoying, but also pretty funny in retrospect, so there were some positives. Anyway, this noise comes from none other than a bug with horns clutching a plasma lamp. What? Believe it or not, this thing is supposed to be a Metroid. The manual says so on everything. It says the jellyfish Metroids we all know and love are actually wee little babes, and they grew up to be this. Now this Metroid might look dangerous, but it's actually way dumber than a typical Metroid. Let me describe its hunting strategy. It goes towards Samus, then stops. Goes, stops. Goes, stops. Goes. And that's basically how all Metroids in this game work. The later ones just go more and stop less. Yeah, the Metroids are totally going extinct. Might have been hard for NES Samus to take them out, but she's been doing yoga for the last 5 years, and my god, she's flexible. Check this out. She can do squats. Squats! The Metroids don't stand a chance. 1994. Nintendo. This is the first time a Metroid opening gets serious. And by serious, I mean they made sure to give the opening special attention. We've got a plot recap, we've got music, we've got rain. Basically, we've got everything. We even have an epic quote, narrated by some guy.
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace.
Wowee, epic. I don't know who he is because I didn't bother to read the credits, but he's something else. Then this Boehner song starts playing out of nowhere. I don't think I've ever been this excited reading a plot recap before. It's really stylish, honestly. After that, Samus is on an elevator, in a space station, in an asteroid belt, in outer space. You know, I don't think I ever noticed this before, but Super Metroid's opening isn't quite like the rest of the game. Well, it is, but there's this one tiny difference. It's empty. Totally empty. Have you ever stopped and noticed just of how much nothing there is here? And I mean, have you really stopped and just took it in? There isn't any music, there aren't any people. Samus is all by herself. Until, I don't know, 30 seconds later, then she finds Ridley and there's explosions and sirens and stuff. That would be that, normally. The devs were onto something, and then got cold feet and hit the rainbow explosion button. But Super Metroid is kinda weird. After the first round of explosions, the game sorta does a reset. Samus lands on Zebes, and instead of finding more stuff to blow up, there isn't anything here. Not a peep. It's empty again. And there's nothing to distract you. No platforming, no puzzles, nada. Which is just fine with me, because there's a lot of cool details to look at. There's splashes of water from soggy grass, bugs scurry away, how it's darker in the cave than it is outside, this super low-pitched chanting, love that. How Samus is alone, completely by herself. It's nothing too crazy, but for a game that released in 1994, you gotta appreciate how it handles this. For a solid 5 minutes, people won't see a single explosion. Honestly, that's a bit creepy. But then those cute smiley faces from Metroid TM show up, and I feel safe. Except this time they glow in the dark, like a cute jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. Yeah, adorable. Once Samus leaves here, the game fills up all the empty rooms, and she's right back to exploding lizard people. Why do they explode though? But anyway, it's weird that Super Metroid never really gets empty after the opening. Maybe a little here and there, but nowhere near as much. It was just a special little thing to get people feeling that isolation everyone talks about. They put a lot of work into this, considering it's only about the first 5 or 8 minutes of the game. I think you can guess why so many people consider Super Metroid a classic. It's quality stuff. Now, maybe you're wondering how anything could top an opening like Super Metroid. It sets a very high bar. Well, if you know anything about Metroid, then you know that Metroid Other M doesn't come close. All the bad things that you've ever heard about Metroid Other M are true. All the bad things you didn't hear, also true. Other M murdered Metroid. Other M murdered itself. Other M probably caused more damage to the environment by filling up landfills than that E.T. game. Does anyone remember that E.T. game? Even if we pretend Other M isn't a Metroid game, it's still not good. I mean, how did they mess up the opening so bad anyway? The very first thing that happens is you're trapped in a tutorial room. This has never happened in a Metroid game before, and I hope it doesn't happen again. Now, I don't have anything against tutorials, it's just Metroid never forced one down our throats before. What Metroid normally does is that it starts off slow and conveniently has you run into obstacles that require you to learn all the buttons. As long as tutorials are dressed up to look nice and make sense, they're dandy in my opinion. They can even be some of the best parts. But when you stick Samus in an empty room, meant only for tutorials, it doesn't matter. Nothing you do at that point can make it fun or interesting. And believe it or not, they almost didn't need to include the tutorial. The game already has a couple of rooms that teach you what the tutorial was just teaching you a few minutes ago. It's ridiculous. Like this room right here. There really isn't anything you can do here, except stand in this very suspicious spot and eventually learn how the wall jumps work. If they just added a few more rooms like this, that would be enough. There wouldn't need to be an awkward tutorial. What? Was it that important to show people how to use an endgame power-up? And the icing on this cake, that no one asked for or wanted, is Mr. Scientist Guy. Now what could be wrong with him? He tells Samus what to do.
Why not say hello with a missile?
That's helpful, right?
Unbelievable.
Hardly, because the game has pop-up instructions that tell you how to do stuff, and they keep popping up hours into the game. So what Mr. Shiny Glasses Man is actually good at is insulting people.
So you plan to just sit there when something grabs you?
Who take 5 seconds too long to finish a tutorial prompt.
Stop wasting time, will ya?
Mm-hmm. The tutorial makes fun of people for taking a few seconds too long.
Unbelievable.
The ones who actually benefit from having a tutorial like this get told to stop wasting time and hurry up. Oh, and Mr. Scientist Man tells Samus,
I gave your suit a polish so you'd be at least somewhat presentable.
normally that'd be fine. Somebody cleaned off Samus's suit. Okay. But, just a minute ago there was a cutscene that showed Samus's new psychoactivated power suit, which materializes in and out of existence whenever Samus feels like it, I think. So let's get this straight. Science Man is saying that Samus's suit was dirty, which is only possible if the suit saves all the dirt when it dematerializes. Yeah, no. The dirt would obviously be disintegrated. Who the heck would invent auto keep your stuff dirty? The only reasonable way there would be anything on there is if Samus kept her suit on the entire time. And since Other M is the direct sequel to Super Metroid, that means after Super Metroid, Samus flew back home and never got distracted enough for her suit to deactivate. Not even once. Nice try, game. But I've got photographic evidence that she actually did. Yeah, I know all about that 2-second video where her suit is dirty, I saw it. But if they wanted this to be reasonable, then they shouldn't have given Samus a psycho suit. It makes no sense. Boom. Seemingly inconsequential, but actually important plot point, destroyed. And we've only finished the tutorial. Oh, it's as if Other M isn't very good. Okay, I need to take a step back here. Other M isn't that bad. There are some good things about it, like how this is the first time Samus can use the woman's bathroom. Yeah. Or that morph ball animation. It looks just right. For real. And there's at least one piece of music in here that I like. The one that plays in the opening of the space station. It's just white noise for the most part. But then, they bring out the ambient chopsticks. Listen to that at night, and trust me, it's a little disturbing. Also, on the bright side, the controls are not awful. They work, so that's good. But they could have been so much better. For whatever reason, the devs decided that Other M, a 3D action game, should only use the Wii Remote. That's not the Wii Remote with a nunchuck, or a classic controller, or the steering wheel, or the gun pointer thingy. That's just the remote. The same remote that doesn't even have enough buttons to play Super Metroid. Thanks to this interesting decision, the devs only had one real option. They had to make everything extremely simple. In other words, even though Samus flips and dodges more than ever, you're actually doing less stuff than normal. Instead of shooting in the vague direction of the bad guy, or aiming for a second and then locking on target, Samus skips all that and uses aimbots. Aimbots that can flip her around by almost 180 degrees.
However,
now just about every third-person action game needs a bit of aim assist. But if Other M used the nunchuck or the Wii steering wheel, the gameplay could have been so much more involved. Like, what about dodging? All you need to do in Other M is push the D-pad when Samus is like 5 feet away from an attack. And since the D-pad is also used for moving, that means the ultimate evasive maneuver is running around in a circle. It's very effective. Although there's hardly enough time to get a feel for the controls in the opening, because half the time you'll be running along, Then suddenly you realize you're not running along and it's actually Samus is doing the running and a cutscene starts playing. To be honest, if there's one thing Other M does well, it's the transitions from gameplay to cutscene. Or even the transitions from cutscene to cutscene. These are stylish, no other way to put it. But, who added these sound effects? What the heck happened here? Did they think this was some kind of joke? Because I could get behind that. My favorite one is just before the tutorial starts. Samus activates her Psycho Suit, right? It sounds all dramatic. There's trumpets and everything. It looks crazy. And then... maybe everyone looks at Other M the wrong way. Maybe it's trying to be a comedic action hero parody thing. I wish that's what it was doing anyway, but I can't even pretend to play dumb here. Other M is obviously trying to be a budget action movie. The looks, the sounds, it's all very underwhelming. I mean, come on, they couldn't even get Samus's costume right. Most of the time she looks like she's a plastic action figure, especially when she's running through a photorealistic-ish jungle. It looks so wrong. Although she looks okay when she's in bland, sterile spaceship environment number 500 billion. She matches that. Yeah, she looks a-okay running through sterile hallway after sterile hallway. Nothing but perfectly flat, clean hallways, with one entrance and one exit. God, this place is lifeless. What happened to all those nice details Metroid games used to have? Like those bugs in Super Metroid that scurried away when you got close. And Prime 1 with its bugs that scurry away. Or how Echoes has bugs that also scurry away. These games got it. They knew that for the most part, the more bugs the better. Then somehow, we end up here. Yeah, it has some bugs that scurry away. But unlike the bugs from before, these aren't for decoration. The main and probably only reason they're here is to foreshadow a boss fight. The boss is a horrible, disgusting monster from the deepest recesses of hell. A purple blob. Yep. That's what they're building up to. This doofy looking thing. You know, I feel like I've seen this from somewhere.
Remember me?
That's it. This blob looks exactly like a boss from Kirby. Look at it. It looks just like one. Everybody knows Kirby bosses have one big evil eyeball. And the bosses are always some kind of being of pure evil. And that looks pretty evil to me. Plus, look at this attack. Wouldn't that fit perfectly in a Kirby game? And this thing's got a simple, round shape. You know what else is round? I swear, this monster came from Kirby's universe. Or what if? What if Samus lives in the same universe as Kirby? It's more likely than you think. So yeah, if you thought an evil cartoon blob looked kinda awkward attacking realistic soldier people, now you know why. Okay. We all know that's not actually canon. Other M is so picky about what and what's not canon anyway. I mean, can you believe that this game caused Nintendo to actually say the Prime games aren't canon? That's right. Metroid Prime Hunters didn't happen according to Nintendo. I don't see why they'd say this. Prime Hunters is a nice, good little game, and its opening is really something else. See, it starts with some kind of children's cartoon. We've got all your favorite superheroes right here, kids. Meet Psylux. Origins, Cyclosis. Good one. Weevil. Species, cybernetic space pirate. Well, I didn't know being a cyborg makes you a different species. The next character, your grandpa. Backstory, has a pacemaker. Species, cybernetic human. Noxus, okay, you get the idea. But I gotta mention my favorite. Caden. Origins, a sinister laboratory. Whoa, he just blew up the laboratory he was made in. That's like blowing up your home planet levels of evil, right? Bad to the bone. So, Hunters has a pretty cool opening. It has nice graphics for the DS, and Samus has a funny run animation. She looks like a crazy person who's got places to go. And that's all I have to say for Hunters. Overall, 10 out of 10 opening. Just love it. Okay, time for Metroid Prime 1's opening. Hey, look at that. Prime 1 has a title screen, just like all the Metroid games. Except other M, of course. Seriously, man, they just had to skip its title screen the first time you load it up, huh? I mean, I understand why. It's boring and objectively not good. Okay, but why do I care? Well, Metroid Prime 1's title screen made me care about title screens. Check it out. Doesn't that look cool? And if I rewind this and go back to the beginning, it even looks cooler. Yeah, this is where the real game begins. Every time. Because it loads this first. Okay, but actually my favorite part is just after this. Listen. I can't be the only one who thinks that's one of the coolest sounds ever, right? Those subtle beeps, that crackly static that sounds like it's folding in on itself. It's every bit as good as I remember. And the opening cutscene is almost as stylish. I mean, I love how the camera slowly pans around the pirate frigate and everything, but damn, Prime 1's title music is just the best. Nothing can beat it. Anyway, the game starts with Samus walking into an enemy spaceship. She shoots some space pirates, some space parasites, and some blue doors. A typical day for Samus. Although if you just remember one thing, remember that Samus blows up everything. Samus always blows up everything, even the spaceship she's in. She gets carried away sometimes. But I guess technically, this time it was the Parasite Queen's fault, because it broke the ship's energy crystals. I've played the opening at least 30 times, and this is the first time I've ever seen these things. Weird. Oh yeah, fun factoid about this. The fight with the Parasite Queen is the stage in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. It flips upside down once in a while. I wish it didn't do that. What was I talking about? Right, the escape sequence. Well, it has lots of explosions, and holograms, and sirens, and fire, and lots of air vents. It's pretty good. Once you make it out, Samus hops in her spaceship just in the nick of time, and the bad guy's evil lair blows to smithereens. It's pretty silly, and I like it. But if you just power walk through the opening like I did, you're gonna miss out on the best parts. To really appreciate Metroid Prime, you need to savor the moment. Take in the sights, listen to the sounds, that kind of thing. This docking bay might not look like much, but if you soak it in for a minute or two, this emptiness, those asteroids, the quiet of outer space. I don't know, it always gets to me. When that jingle is over, the music is gone, that's great. It's just Samus on a docking bay with the hum of machines. I think the reason I think this is so cool is at least partly because I'm nostalgic about it. It's just an empty room. A very nice empty room that puts other empty rooms to shame, because it's the freaking best empty room, but you know, I understand if it doesn't hit the same way for everybody. Anyway, like I was saying, it's just Samus on a docking bay with the hum of machines. One by one they shut down and leave only silence. Except for one thing. The sound of outer space. Outer space makes a sound apparently, which, funny enough, sounds like a reference to Metroid 2. I'm pretty sure it is. See, Metroid 2 has this title screen with a view of outer space, and it played this single beep. Then in Metroid Prime, with a nice view of outer space, that's pretty cool, you gotta admit. Now, slowing down so much where you start to notice things like this might seem kinda random. Personally, I do it in most games, and you really should do it in Metroid Prime. I mean, the game even has its own mechanic to encourage people to be slow. It's called the scan visor. You literally can't go fast and use this thing at the same time, because using it makes the game freeze, and then it asks you to read. Words. Lots of words. But honestly, I can't think of a better reason to stop and smell the burning spaceship fuel than stopping to read what the burning spaceship fuel smells like. Now I wish the scan logs actually had descriptions of smell. Or maybe just descriptions of senses. Oh well. I think everybody uses the scan visor at least a bit, but I'm sometimes not so sure because I remember lots of people on YouTube who talked about Prime 1, and they would always bring up how you don't need to scan stuff if you don't want to. So true. So very technically correct. In reality though, not scanning stuff is obviously the worst idea ever. That's just not how Metroid Prime was meant to be played. You're expected to scan stuff. Not all the stuff, but some of it. Like this hologram here. Imagine not knowing that Meta Ridley has 2 brains glued together. Look at this. 2 brains stacked right on top of each other. Would Prime 1 even be good without this? That's debatable. And that pretty much covers everything about Prime 1's opening. But before the next game, I need to set the record straight. Lots of people say it's dumb that Samus loses her power-ups because of a little explosion. An explosion that sends Samus flying 15 feet across a room and slams her into a wall. If that was all, then yeah, that'd be a pretty lame excuse to get rid of her power-ups. You can do better than that, Samus, come on. But if you look closely, Samus clearly hits the wall back first. And after that, she loses her power-ups. It wasn't because of the explosion, it was because she hurt her back. That's why her powers are gone. I don't know about you, but I can relate to that. Back pain is the worst. Who doesn't lose all their powers when their back hurts? Samus is human. Hashtag relatable. Sometimes I can hardly move because my back hurts. I get this. It's a horrible way for Samus's adventure to start, but not the worst way. The worst way would be to do what Other M did. But I already talked about that, so the next worst way would be if Samus's ship got struck by lightning. Especially dangerous purple lightning. Pretty much ever since I first played Echoes, I've always felt that something, somewhere in this opening is off. I could never quite figure out what, because I just wanted to play my favorite game in the trilogy. I wasn't concerned about one little section in the game. I wanted to play the whole game, multiple times. It's a really good game, by the way. But anyway, I found out what was off about the opening a few days ago. It's unfinished. It's not buggy or bad or anything like that. It's just that for the first 10 minutes of Echoes, and again, just for the first 10 minutes, it seems almost like a different game. A fun and well put together game that's different. The story is different, the enemies are different, and the mood is kinda different. For some reason. Now prepare to be amazed. This is the big truth. Zombies don't belong in this world. They should not be here. What? How is that possible? Aren't zombies an important enemy? The most important? They're the first thing you fight. They foreshadow the main threat. They even have their own theme song. I'm saying they're not important? Yeah, and that's not just me hating on zombies for no reason. The entire concept of zombie fades into the ether after the first few fights. Which sounds like a problem, because if the first enemy is a zombie, and what we've seen so far are piles of corpses ripe for zombie possession, that can only mean one thing. The opening is prepping us for the up-and-coming zombie apocalypse. When I say it like that, these mounds of dead bugs look terrifying. Think of all the possibilities. Corpses reanimating without warning? That's some horror type material right there. Metroid Prime 2, when the dead bugs rise up. Metroid Prime 2, zombies never stay down. But forget about all that, because once Samus reaches the GF spaceship, which only takes a few minutes, the zombie idea is dropped off a cliff. They probably dropped them off this cliff, now that I think of it. And just like that, no more zombies. No human zombies, no alien zombies, no bug zombies, no zombies. None. In the entire game. Although that's just fine with me. Zombies are really generic. The replacement is so much better. Crazed, backflipping karate devil bugs. Who can do stealth takedowns. Yeah, I'd take this over zombies any day. Wait a minute. If the devil bugs killed all the GF soldiers, except for this guy, who recorded this in-game video? Those were some nice camera angles. Getting back to why these zombies don't belong in the game, they probably did, at some point. But Echoes had a horribly rushed development. It was really bad. Just for context, in an interview, one of the game's producers said that Retro Studios said that they felt like Echoes was only 30% complete. Nintendo released it 3 months later. Starts to make sense why the opening doesn't blend with the rest of the game. Retro Studios probably had to scrap the zombie idea, and they didn't have enough time to replace it with a different monster, or something. And just like the zombies, there's also some strangeness going on with the scan logs. But first, I need to back up a second. See, in Metroid Prime 1, the scan logs have a little problem I like to call omnipotent encyclopedia-ism. No matter what you scanned, 99.999% of the time, it knew what it was. All you needed to do was scan an orange hexagon and it'd say something crazy like, "These hexagons are escape pod bays. They are all empty. Most left approximately 6.2321 hours ago." It's a little much sometimes, so it makes sense that the devs might have wanted to tone that down in a sequel. And for the first 10 minutes or so of Echoes, that's what they did. Now the scan logs are a bit mysterious. They don't explain everything. And sometimes they even ask questions. It's almost like Echoes is making Samus a detective. A space detective, who asks hard questions like, is this potted plant really just for decoration? Or, this soldier was killed by friendly fire. Whether it was an accident remains to be seen. Ooh, so mysterious. Honestly, the more I think about this version of the scan visor, the more I feel like Echoes was ripped off. These first few minutes were going places, trying different things. It might have been cool. But when Samus leaves this cave, presto. The scan logs are written exactly like they were back in Prime 1. No mystery and no uncertainty. It's even worse than it sounds, because this happens before the Mothman updates Samus' scan log. At least at that point, there's an excuse why the scan visor knows about everything, but it starts to know about everything a few minutes before it gets updated. So, oops. Turns out my gut feeling was right. There was something off about the opening. Something so off that the first 10 minutes feel pretty different. And that's pretty cool. Moral of the story, keep your openings unfinished. It's much more fun to talk about. It's a shame Nintendo rushed Echoes out the door. A few more months would have done wonders for it. But hey, they made sure to give the next Metroid Prime plenty of development time. That's right, the best one. Metroid Prime Pinball. The pinnacle of pinball itself. Actually, I have no idea how the development process went. Anyway, I was looking for reviews of this on YouTube the other day, so I could get a feel for the 2005 gamer's zeitgeist. And to my shock, my utter disbelief, there's almost nothing on Prime Pinball. We've got like 10 reviews. And when YouTube starts showing you videos spoken in some cryptic language, you know there's not a lot of videos. I wasn't planning on doing this, but what the hell. Consider this a mini review. First things first, this music is absolutely rad. I love atmospheric white noise, but I rather listen to a Boehner Son while playing a cheapo pinball game. But Prime Pinball was probably $35. I'm not sure how much it cost at launch, but I know it wasn't cheap. One thing about this music doesn't sound right though. Let me fix it. Samus is under fire. She sent an emergency directive. Join the fight. What'd you think? That's what they did to this song in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Added bizarre voiceover.
Samus is under fire. She sent an emergency directive. Join the fight.
Right, now I'm just getting distracted. The song is good. Got it. So what about that pinball gameplay? Well, it's fine. You can whack the ball, which hits stuff. It's pinball, you know, it's pretty fun. Although the fun you get out of it really depends on your rage tolerance. Because, wow, Prime Pinball is hard. Seriously, I have no doubt in my mind that this is the hardest game in the Prime series. And people say Echoes is bad. What do they know? They know nothing. Because see, in pinball, you'll be doing fine. Then Samus rolls right in between the flippers. A few rounds of this and I started to cherish each life like a beautiful little baby. A baby that could spontaneously turn to dust. There's only 3 lives, so... And can I just say that this computer voice gives me bad vibes? It constantly says big points and mission failed and panic, and it kind of stresses me out. It sounds so serious. Like if it said, Samus, the
Big
laser beam will blow up the solar system.
panic terror.
Its tone would match that situation. I know the devs were just adding in more Metroid references, and that's fine. It's good. It's what you buy Metroid Pinball for. But somewhere down the line, a few of these references turned into full-blown attempts to recreate Metroid Prime. And I don't think it worked out too well. Because now instead of playing pinball, we get to play a shooting minigame. If this is the first time you've seen this, I know, it does look pretty funny. But unless you enjoy slowly rotating Samus left and right for like 40 seconds, well, you'll get sick of this in no time. There really isn't anything more to it. You move left and right, aim at the bugs, and get...
Big points.
I'd rather play pinball, you know? It's a lot more fun. And I mean, most of the time you are playing pinball. The game's not awful. It just has a few problems. Although one of those problems is... it's pretty bad. See, Prime Pinball has bosses. And oh my god, these bosses are bonkers. Not the good kind of bonkers either, the bad bonkers. Although bonkers is kind of a funny word. I should have used a different word. So these bosses? Bonkers. Why? Well, because they ruined pinball tables. Technically, I guess there wasn't anything to ruin in the first place, because when a table is this empty, I wouldn't even call them pinball tables. It's more like a boss arena. There's nothing fun to bonk into, almost no flashing lights, just a lot of nothing to do. So when you get bored of slamming into bosses, there really isn't anything left for you here. You're stuck with the first two tables. If it wasn't for this gimmick, Prime Pinball would have been a much better game. Oh wait, this was supposed to be a review, wasn't it? To wrap up this mini review, which turned into a full review somehow, Metroid Prime Pinball is like pinball, but with guns. 7.8 out of 10. Too much Metroid. Alright, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. Where do I begin? This is kinda hard, because even though Corruption has the longest opening since Metroid TM, I just don't think it's interesting. Almost the whole time I played this 1 or 2 hour long opening, I didn't really care for it. Samus shoots bad guys, stuff blows up, the music is okay, the superheroes are dumb. In the end, everything blends together. There's no other way to put this, but Corruption's opening is boring. 1 to 2 whole hours of boring. Whenever I replay this, I always wonder if Prime 3 is even good. The beginning is so uninteresting. But when Samus finally gets a shiny new suit and lands on a different planet, the game gets better. A lot better. Suddenly it's a Metroid game again. But everything before that is so bland. There's not much stuff to look at, it's not creepy. I don't know, it all feels like padding. It's just stuff you need to do. And a lot of this stuff doesn't even feel like Metroid stuff. Constantly attacking enemies, talking to people, admiring the military. Seems more like a Halo game. I've never played Halo, so I have no idea if that's true. But everyone says Corruption is like Halo, so yeah. You talk to people.
Hey, Samus.
What? Do I know you?
Hey, Samus.
Remember me?
Also, you can watch super soldiers shoot super guns. Probably a Halo thing. But I just want to get to the Metroid stuff. Or really anything interesting. Although there are a few good moments here, which isn't exactly surprising considering this opening can take 2 hours to finish. There were bound to be a few highlights. So there's the controls, they're great. The Ridley fight is the best, and the 3 Pirate Stooges. Oh shoot, it's Samus. Hey, don't worry, we rehearsed this. Alright guys, catch! The best part is they don't run away, they just run around and wait for Samus to shoot them. Awkward. Speaking of which, let's talk about shooting stuff. Back on the GameCube, it was alright. There's really not much to it. You point the camera in the general direction of the bad guy, lock on target, and mash the A button. Not the most intuitive control scheme, but it worked. Then corruption comes along and fixes all of that. Perfectly. I forgot just how good it feels to aim with the Wii Remote. I knew I liked it, but I could hardly get over this. Even after 13 years, the controls are amazing. I guess they'll always feel good. High five, Samus. But this gets even better. Not only does it feel great to aim anywhere on the screen, it also opens up a lot of cool possibilities. Because now everything can have weak points. You could aim for the head, or the legs, or the suspicious spot under its armpits. Or you could just shoot at it like normal. For most enemies, it doesn't matter, unfortunately. But the bosses, matters for them a lot. That's the whole reason this Ridley fight is, in my objective and inarguable opinion, the best Ridley fight. How could it get any better, honestly? It has maximum flash, beautiful controls, and a counter to remind us of our mortality. Oh, Ridley's down there shooting laser beams out of his mouth, and you're trying to dodge them and shoot laser beams into his mouth. And then he'll start to wind up and prepare to slap Samus. What could you do to stop that? Point at the glowing spot and slap him first. And for this whole fight, there isn't anything for you to lock onto. Just aim like your life depends on it. Even though it doesn't, and Ridley dies incredibly quickly. But yeah, that's my favorite Ridley fight. And if it's not yours, then you might as well write a comment and tell me your favorite Ridley fight. That'd be so nice. Once that's over, Samus is about to fall into a pit of lava and die. But just before she does, she's whisked away by the coolest superhero ever. We can tell because he rides on an icicle surfboard. He even says it's too hot for his liking. Ha! Oh god, it's like Hunters all over again. Meet Icicle Man. Origins, an ice cube. He may not have eyes, but you'll still feel this man's cold and chilled past. Say hi to Spunky Purple Lady. She's the residential shapeshifter. Also, we got a robot. He's got anger management issues. And with the superpower of teamwork, nothing can stop them. But even with a couple of good moments, when you spread that over what could take an hour or two, 10 minutes of good stuff isn't quite enough. The rest of the opening can be pretty much summed up as meh. 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 Oh my god, what did they do to your feet? They ruined you. Dark Samus had the creepiest spindly little feet I've ever seen. And now she's wearing shoes. What a disappointment. Meh, 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 meh. Even Bland Sterile Spaceship number 500 billion and 1 is not bad. It looks kinda cool. But it's still just a bland gray spaceship. I feel pretty neutral about it. Just like everything else in Prime 3's opening. Although Metroid Samus Returns, that was pretty exciting. I mean, the Metroid game that came out before this one released 7 years ago. And that game was Other M. So yeah, I was excited for a new Metroid game. And of course, it didn't quite live up to my expectations. Hollow Knight releasing the same year probably has something to do with that. But still, as a Metroid fan, Samus Returns has a bunch of random stuff that bugs me. Like, why don't the toads with T-Rex legs look cute anymore? They used to. They used to look so cute. And why did they remake Metroid 2, but decide to use Metroid 1's title music? I bet the only reason Nintendo did this is because they figured it'd trigger the most nostalgia, their favorite weapon. But come on, a Metroid 2 remake should use Metroid 2's title music. Those beeps, that melody, it was one of the best songs in the game, why not use it? Okay, technically, Metroid 2's title music is in here. They were just hiding it at the end of a fairly long song. I'm not sure why, but I like the old version more. The original has this desolate yet hopeful feel to it. Then there's explosions. Sounds like the world is going to end in horrific hellfire. It's got that going for it. This new one is fine. Sounds a bit generic. Though, I don't know much about music, so... check out what happens when we push a button. One thing that's kinda weird is, whenever you select your save file, Samus always has the gravity suit on, even when your save file is brand new. Oh shoot, is this what happens to Samus's power-ups? She starts with all of them, like you'd expect, but when she leaves her spaceship, maybe they disintegrate or deactivate or something? I don't know what happens, but they're gone. And like, all her powers are gone. She doesn't even start with the Morph Ball, and she started with that in the original Metroid too. So, I don't know, but I guess Samus likes limiting herself? Either that or it's because of video games, which is valid, especially in Samus Returns. And you know, that's okay with me, because now we've got a legit excuse to bust out the deadly karate chops, the menacing mid-air kicks, and bust Samus's arm by spinning it around all day long. And maybe suddenly burst into dance? Let's be real. Samus has never been better at dancing. She's also never been able to dance before, so that's a thing. Now let's switch gears with one of the slower Metroid openings. Metroid Fusion, a game that starts off like no other. We see Samus's ship escorting a dump truck. Then Samus freezes and is like,
"It was at this moment I knew I should have."
I take back what I said earlier about how Samus's ship getting struck by lightning is the worst way to start the day. Exploding next to a garbage truck is worse. Now, this might not make any sense, but see, it all started when Samus was hunting toads with T-Rex legs. Now that big boy's got teeth. Lots of teeth. Turns out that this toad right here is actually a gelatinous flying blob in disguise. And after Samus shoots it with a missile, it gets angry and retaliates by going inside of Samus's body. Just like that. Don't ask how that's possible. I thought her suit was airtight. But the weirdest part is nobody cares. All these people saw what happened. Samus even tried to shoot the thing. I guess giant blobs of goo absorbing into your body is normal for these people. Even Samus shrugs it off and pretty much says,
"I never encountered anything like that before."
She figured she'd be fine. Whatever, forget about it. Then a few days later, she's escorting a dump truck for some reason and dies. And what do you think's gonna happen? You need to see a doctor. God. Or she almost died, but the emergency ejection seat worked. So then, the trash collectors pick up Samus and start performing surgery. Long story short, they botch the job and get nasty gooey garbage goo all over her. Great job, guys. Samus is going to die now, but story revelation, then suit augmentation, and bada bing bada boom, she's ready for action. And the first mission she decides to tackle is one that awakens a nameless fear in her heart. Samus has the endurance of a gorilla on steroids. That's a sick purple hot rod. Now if this was any other Metroid game, right about now the story would fade into nothingness. Honestly, Metroid stories are just about as important as Mario saving Princess Peach. It's just a reason for Samus to be here. Ah, Ridley stole a Metroid. Good luck finding it. That's Super Metroid. Ah, it's Ridley. Better kill him. That's Metroid Prime. And I could go on. But in Metroid Fusion, well, the story never really goes away. It's a big part of the game, and in the opening we learn that those flying goo balls are super dangerous and have basically taken over the entire space station. That, plus, there's a bit of foreshadowing. This computer says some scary stuff like,
"Oh no, what caused that explosion?"
Cue the danger music.
"Dear God, Samus's old Viera suit went missing. Whatever could have happened to..."
I just had to show it. It's the best moment in Fusion. That goo that was all over Samus had the unexpected effect of becoming an evil clone. And unlike a certain evil clone, this one wasn't a dumb idea. This was a great idea. Fusion wants to give people the heebie-jeebies, and this thing does wonders for that. It's spooky, it's dangerous, and it could be lurking anywhere, even in the walls. Now this makes me want to play Fusion all over again. Although that would involve reading, and I'd rather not read anything. I just don't feel like it right now, thank you very much. And if that's how you feel, then do I have a game for you. It starts off very similar to another game. Too similar. Metroid Zero Mission is an unfaithful remake of the original Metroid, TM. Let's be honest with ourselves, if Nintendo actually remade Metroid 1 and kept it as close to the original experience as possible, nearly everyone would hate it. At least I probably would. Best case scenario, it would be way less popular than Zero Mission. Because to really be like Metroid TM, it would need to be freakishly difficult, extremely obtuse, have zero guidance, play at a slow pace, and also have password saves. But Zero Mission doesn't work like that at all. This game tells you where to go so much that there's almost no chance you'll get lost. It's got easy to follow instructions, Samus has a bunch of HP, so adios freakish difficulty, and probably the biggest change that's especially obvious in the opening. Zero Mission is really fast. It feels like Samus is the one who's driving that trans-dimensional flying train back in Metroid TM. Oh god. I mean, just look at her run cycle. Her legs are pumping at 50 miles an hour. Her arms are swinging with such gusto. And her back is even more hunched forwards than mine usually is. And if you're quick, you can even see after images when she jumps. After images. You know a video game character is going fast when that happens. But why is Samus going so fast? We'll never really know. She could be getting pizza, she could be looking for a bathroom. Anything's possible. But a better question would be, is Samus actually moving fast? Or is this just an illusion? Well, let's have a quick comparison. Metroid TM versus Zero Mission. First one to get the morph ball is a speedy devil. And there we have it, Huh? Okay. Bad example, I guess. Let me put this another way. Zero Mission has rooms, and the Metroid TM has rooms. But these rooms are huge. Huge and empty. And that means there's a lot of time where you'll be slowly walking along without anything in particular happening. Not very fun, and it definitely doesn't make me feel fast. But in Zero Mission, Nintendo took these old empty rooms and sliced them into teeny tiny pieces, tossed out the excess, then squeezed the rest right back together. Et voila! The rooms are compact, which makes Samus feel like she's covering a lot of ground, cause now every few seconds there's something interesting to see. And Samus can cover ground even faster if you pick up the pace and get reckless, avoiding enemies. That's what slowpokes do. Just crash into them and keep moving. Samus can handle it. She's got heavy-duty armor. A few hits won't do a thing. Go on, crash into those enemies. Keep moving forwards. Ignore them. They're only a hindrance if you think they are. Although, later on, the enemies get more dangerous. You gotta be careful then. But the opening is jam-packed full of handy-dandy Chozo statues that restore all your health. So there's no barriers to slow down anyone. We're free to be reckless. This game is just bursting with so much energy, it's hard not to get caught up in it. There's an energetic remix of an already energetic song. The enemies are zooming around. Samus is zooming around. Everything is going so fast, it makes me feel like a raging lunatic. I mean, it only takes a few seconds to start a new game. All the music makes you want to dance really quickly. There's statues that give you directions and a full tank of health. And if you think that stuff encourages speeding, wait till you get a load of this. The first thing you'll see when you turn on Zero Mission is the word emergency. And if we watch what happens next, it even sounds like an emergency. Even the intro cutscene is psyching us up. Really, for me, this is what Zero Mission's opening is all about. Going as fast as possible. Which sure isn't how I made this video. I took my grand old time on this. It took so long that even Metroid Dread, the game that wasn't ever supposed to happen, almost released before I finished this video. That's just crazy. We'll see if it has a good opening or not in a month or so. But if there's one thing I learned from making this video, it's that if you want to give a game a fair chance, you really shouldn't judge it by the opening.